In your opinion, do patients have access to high-quality information about rare disease nowadays?
So that's still extremely difficult. It's still a real challenge for patients to find the information, to find the right expert when they think there is something like that could be a rare disease. And the first issue, the first dilemma, the first challenge which we are all facing in all countries is to connect a specialist of a rare disease with a patient that has the disease for the diagnosis. And this is why the European Commission, member states, have developed a policy to create centers of expertise so that all the doctors, when they think a patient can have a rare disease, know to whom to refer the patient to have the correct diagnosis and then the right treatment.
So we can assume that communication is a big deal in this project, right?
Not only the communication, but we need to create the infrastructures. We need to adopt common policies. What is a center of expertise? What should they do for the patients? How should they share the expertise? Can they refer a patient to another hospital in another country when there is an excellent expert in this other country? And this is linked to the European legislation on patients' rights to cross-border care, which we still need to organize because not all patients know where is the best expert for their disease. It may be in the country, it may be in another country, and all patients should have the right or to establish contact remotely with an expert or to consult with this expert in another country. But we need this information. We need all member states to inform their citizens about their rights for cross-border care, the right to access specialized centers to connect the experts with the patients.
What is the real dimension of rare diseases problem in Europe?
So first, because they're rare, there is little expertise, little research, and it's still unclear to estimate exactly how many people are living with a rare disease in Europe. And we estimate something between 3% to 6-7% of the European population is affected by a rare disease. The thing is, there are plenty of rare diseases, maybe 6,000. We don't even know the exact number of rare diseases there are. So you may have a rare disease with only 50 patients living with the disease in the European Union at present, and other with thousands or tens of thousands of patients. All together, they may represent something between 15 million people or 30 million people, according to different estimates. But what is clear about each of these rare diseases is they are always severe, they affect children, they limit life expectancy, and they provoke very severe disabilities.
Is the delay in diagnosing rare diseases still an issue?
It is still an issue. Patients have to visit several doctors, several specialists, and sometimes it still takes decades for a patient to have the exact diagnosis, but there are huge progresses. The geneticists are learning to use new tools to detect genes, to recognize diseases better. And again, these centers of expertise are the cornerstone of the efforts to help diagnosing the patients, and these centers now can communicate with each other. This is what we call telemedicine, so that different specialists can discuss a difficult case and together find the right diagnosis for the most difficult cases.
What are or should be the early diagnosis criteria for rare diseases?
The early diagnosis criteria, you mean? Well, I think before the early diagnosis criteria, what we need to change, including among medical students, where the way they learn, the way they prepare, the way they study is always to think what is the most likely diagnosis when they see a patient with a disease. They not often think, well, what is the most often diagnosis, but what could be the other diagnosis, something more rare. They have to systematically ask themselves the question, in case the patient doesn't respond well to a treatment, or in case they have an hypothesis but it doesn't match very well, they should always systematically think, oh, maybe there is an underlying rare disease. What can I do? Who can I ask to confirm which exams I should prescribe? So that's the first thing we need to train young doctors and specialists and medical students to think that rare diseases exist.
What is your evaluation of European references networks virtual advisory platform?
So these networks are certainly promising. We need to develop them. They're very new, they're very recent, but they are really the cornerstone of modern medicine for these patients. Only European solutions can help patients. No single state in isolation can find solutions. But we need to increase the funding for these networks to function fully. And so it's only the beginning, and we need more centers of expertise to join these networks. It's a start. It will take time to develop them, to plan and to organize, to implement all the activities they have to do, but it has started, and we need to continue pushing this important effort.
Which country has the best national rare disease plan, or is the best prepared to that?
That's an extremely difficult question, because among all the recommendations, different countries may take on board some recommendations and other countries will take on board other recommendations. I'm not sure we can respond to this. It's very difficult to evaluate, and there are good progresses, good practices in some countries, other good practices in other countries. We know it will take time because it's costly, it requires a lot of effort, so I think we can't say at present which country has the most advanced or the best developed plan, but probably those that started to have these plans, like Denmark or France, already years ago, have learned from their experience and now are in a better position to prepare well-adapted national plans for rare diseases.
What do you think the added value of ERNS is?
Certainly to gather the expertise. As soon as you group excellent experts from different member states, you are more likely to find solutions. So to gather this expertise, which includes the patients who are now involved in these reference networks, and discuss with the doctors in these networks how to prioritize research, how can we improve telemedicine, etc., and etc. This is really making the best use of these networks by having all parties in the governance of these networks deciding together what needs to be done and evaluating the impact of the networks.
Thank you.